Look, you guys know by now that I generally don't like doing negative content on Overwatch, but when I feel like there is a problem that we need to discuss, I discuss it on this channel, and whatever the thumbnail and the title looks like, I generally want to talk about some of the issues with this mode that is kind of here to stay. Now, we're talking about the sad state of 6v6, and before I dig into it, quick shout out to the patrons over here. Thank you for your financial support, and then quick shout out to more than half of you, for some reason, are still not subscribed, but you're coming back to watch the videos. Guys, if you want to stay informed, want to keep up with the new videos, please hit that little red button down there. It helps a lot. And you can even click the bell icon to be notified of when a video is uploaded. With that being said, let's jump into the video. So the 6v6 mode, I think, has now been out for about 4 seasons, and while the game mode, despite having some of the problems that a lot of us didn't want that came with it, like, oh, we don't want the health pools, the 225 and 250, scaling HP pools, we don't like that. Maybe we don't want some of the changes from 5v5 to come over here. For whatever it was worth, when you actually sit down to play a proper game of 6v6, even in the open queue format, and you have a little bit of stability in your compositions, in my personal opinion, the gameplay experience is vastly superior to 5v5. Now, that's just my opinion alone, and that's completely fine if you don't agree with it, because we're human beings, and sometimes you might like the chocolate ice cream flavor, I like the strawberry vanilla ice cream flavor, and that's how we differ as human beings. These, like everything in life, to some extent, is opinionated and subject to each different person, and that case. Now, one of the goals that Overwatch has made, even if you look at the recent devlog that came out, Aaron Keller had basically said they want to create your way to play Overwatch. But just one thing that I find a little bit sad about that I personally feel that now 4 seasons into this mode, it's a little bit insulting to the player base that care about this game mode, the 6v6, even if it's an open queue, is the fact that, like, even Stadium as a game mode gets its own dedicated balance patches. Granted that they have knobs to tweak, like Alec Dawson always wanted, and I know the Stadium is a lot more in the hands of the Stadium team, which I'm not sure if Alec Dawson is kind of helping out with. I do believe Dylan Snyder is somebody who's heading that, and he's a great guy. I really love interacting with him on Twitter, and they're doing a great job with Stadium. I don't have any complaints with Stadium. I have some minor issues I want to talk about in a couple of days from now, but we'll get there when we get there. My point basically is that we're seeing dedicated balance patches to 5v5, albeit that they're very small and not that impactful most of the time, and they add up over the course of a few seasons. We are, however, seeing very big and dedicated patches to Stadium. Now, their idea is that we have 5v5, 6v6 open queue, and Stadium as the new, like, different ways to play. They call it the, well, hilariously enough, your Overwatch, right? It is your Overwatch, it is your way to play. Shoutouts to to good old Fredo somewhere lurking around. So with that being said, I just think that now, in 4 seasons later, that there's not been a single dedicated 6v6 patch. It kind of gives me a feeling that Blizzard doesn't really care about this mode. They are exclusively balancing around 5v5, and I've talked about 5v5 comes with its own problems, but now this particular patch that came out had really hindered my experience and fun in the 6v6 game mode. With the new 30% heal reduction, the meta tank lines in the 6v6 game mode are just stacking mitigation one way or the other, right? Like, and if you think about it, like, think about the meta tanks in 5v5. Right now it's Orisa Ramatra, right? Well, you only have to, at the end of the day, at least in 5v5, you only have to deal with one of them at a time. In 6v6, you have to deal with Orisa and Ram just sustaining themselves with the supports right next to them, and sometimes it can feel so much more harder to push down those strong walls that they put up, that they're literally, both of them are walking walls, to get through them and deal with perhaps the rest of the composition. And it's also much harder when sustainability becomes the name of the game, to actually go for flanks. So you're forced to take either, brawls, or rely on poke based compositions in hope to, burst through the state of sustain in the game right now and kind of go from there. So I have a video coming up on talking about the state of Orisa, because I think Orisa needs to be nerfed. And honestly, the fact that the character is hard meta in 5v5, 6v6, and even Stadium is ridiculous. I think Orisa is by far the, perhaps not Orisa as a full character, but Fortify by far is the worst ability ever created in this game. I don't think there's this ability that comes as close to how much free value Orisa's Fortify is. It's pretty much a Marvel Rivals ability, but even Marvel Rivals ability are somewhat, like, not as ludicrous as what Fortify allows Orisa to get away with nowadays, at the very least. And that's just my opinion on that. I guess only Venom really comes close, since he has his own personal Fortify, but it doesn't give him a damage reduction. He just gets raw HP that he does have to time a little bit better. But coming back to Orisa and 626, and it's pretty much just, I hate the fact that we've not gotten a dedicated patch to improving the 6v6 experience. I think if we thought Freya was bad in 5v5, like wait till you see how easy it is for her to get rid of tanks in 6v6. Perhaps they could have scaled her damage a little bit better. I'm a Freya apologist myself, but even I think that, well, the impact that she brings in 6v6 is a little bit rough. Now, Echo is a character that doesn't necessarily shine in 5v5 that much, but I actually think she's giga OP in 6v6. In fact, somewhere in the background right now, you're going to be watching an Echo game that I played where, man, I went 61 elims this game and I had so much control. Now, that's also because Echo has really good perks, and she has, well, one of her perks is really good, and she's just really good at dealing with this, like, working with like the multi-tank composition. Echo's niche, even back in the old days of 66, was she worked really well with her tanks. She's a really good, like, hand holding character that could like get in with the tanks, apply that pressure, poke from a safe distance, even duel at a safe distance with her beam at a target that she could beam down. And then the stickies are a great source of just applying the DPS passive and also applying burst damage that your tanks can follow up on. So she's just a great character in 66. But I think, like, I can't help but deny that even as somebody who's been playing her in that mode, I think, okay, I think Echo's just a little bit overtuned for the 6v6 mode, but can we address her individually in a way where perhaps, we don't have to gutter her in 5v5 because she's a little bit more awkward in 5v5. And that's kind of the problem that we are now stuck in with Overwatch 2 is, even though we have the 6v6 game mode, it genuinely feels like Blizzard has left this game mode in to just like shut people up. Like just, look, here's your 6v6 game mode. Here's a half-assed effort to just changing some cooldowns in some of the HP bars. We're not going to give it a dedicated patch. If something from 5v5 flows well into 6v6, then enjoy it. If it doesn't deal with it, I think a tank that to me stands out like a huge sore thumb in 6v6 is Hazard, is a lot more stronger in my experience in 6v6 than he is in 5v5, and D.Va can feel near uncontestable at times in both 5v5 and 6v6, but actually I think with the other tank by her side, contesting D.Va feels so difficult, especially if Zarya gets banned. Zarya gets banned out a lot, so D.Va gets to see so much more play. So I think what I would really like to see is that I don't want to see the 6v6 game mode get neglected. I hate the fact that perhaps it, like, this is what I personally feel, is it's almost like Blizzard just doesn't care about the mode. I don't like all the marketing around your way of enjoying Overwatch, but then, well, this is the way that I would prefer to enjoy Overwatch, but there's not a single dedicated patch to perhaps help better the experience towards it. I think that would be a great step forward if we could find a way to change how, like, just like give 6v6 a dedicated patch to see who's over or underperforming in 6v6 and change things up. And no, I don't think you just increase cooldowns by 2 seconds or decrease them by 2 seconds. I think you look at the way some of the characters interact and how the numbers feel and change it up. For example, I think Juno's perk, where she can reduce her cooldown on torpedoes, is very broken in 6v6 because you can literally give yourself a 2-second cooldown on torpedoes, and my god, does it come up very fast if you know what you're doing. So these are the small things that I feel like are just kind of going under the radar. I also think 𝐓𝐕aver is a lot better in 6v6 than he is in 5v5. I know he's finding his place in 5v5 on the side, but he's very strong in 6v6 as well, to the point that I'm just kind of like, man, like, not only can he hide behind like those two like tanks playing alongside him, but the moment you try to contest him, he has so much mobility and power in his escape tools that this character just never dies. Right, so at least so far, like in like this season specifically, I felt like the glaring issues of the 6v6 mode are beginning to stand out. But what I don't like is, even if issues stand out in 5v5 and Stadium, since these are our core 3 game modes, they get to have a dedicated balance patch. But how come we don't see that for 6v6? How come there's not been a dedicated balance patch to 6v6? Because I'm not lying to you guys, the current state of Tracer and Reaper is so much more oppressive and overpowered in 6v6, where they can burst down tanks incredibly fast, compared to 5v5 where they have the extra passive or something, I think, and they can sustain their fights better. So me personally, my only request to Blizzard is, hey, I'm really enjoying 6v6 and I really like the new approach with enjoy Overwatch your way. But then I ask the same thing, it's like, well, how am I supposed to enjoy Overwatch my way if the one mode that I particularly like to enjoy, some of the changes that you make for 5v5, they're coming to 6v6 and we're just kind of forced to deal with it. Like, oh, Tracer's a little bit more oppressive or Reaper's a lot more stronger in 6v6. Well, just deal with it. Use hero bans and map bans. And I don't like this approach because that's actually the approach they used to even gig above Tracer and Reaper recently. So personally, I'm just not a fan of it. I'm just asking, like, very, very calmly, nicely. I'm not going in on the devs for whatever the reason might be. I'm sure they have their hands full with the stadium and this and that and the different systems. They've done a great job up until so far, but I am just asking, guys, can we have just one small dedicated 6v6 patch? Maybe the way certain things are interacting, like Juno's torpedo and the fact that she gets it on a 2-second cooldown. It's really ridiculous that it can go that low. The state of some characters, I don't think Reaper needed the change that he got in 6v6. I think he's incredible into the tanks over there, to the point the tanks literally cannot do anything about it unless you're playing like the tanks that can genuinely damage reduce, like Hazard, Ram, and Diva completely negates damage. I think Tracer with the 6 pellets and 6v6 is incredibly oppressive, right? And then we also, like, again, I defend Freya a lot, but I do think Freya could use a small number tune, particularly in the 6v6 mode, because of how easy it is for her to also burst down the tank. So I'm trying to look at it from every role's perspective. Now, again, trying to bring everybody a little bit more in line with one another, because I like on the other side, like, tanks also are a little bit silly with Orisa survivability. Orisa Ram just like bunker it up, and I feel like I'm playing double shield again, where we're just like hard forcing these like tanks who just never die, and it just doesn't feel fun. Like, I've not played with a Winston in 3 weeks now, because anytime somebody tries to play Winston, they just get blown up by Orisa, or another tank that can out sustain what Winston wants to do, and the guy just swaps it up to Orisa Ram and then decides to play the block bot and fortify simulator in hopes that the rest of us can pop up. So that's just my minor criticism of the 6v6 mode. I still think it's infinitely more fun than 5v5, that's for sure. I do have a rant coming on Orisa tomorrow, so if you're interested in that, once again, hit the subscribe button. With that said, I will see you in tomorrow's video.